Hi, I'm Barbara Lucas, and welcome to the Green Room, where we explore the environmental topics that green up our world. Joining me is Dr. Elizabeth Goodenough, a literary scholar, writer, and researcher who has a very interesting field of study, children's play. Children today spend less time outdoors than any generation in human history. According to the National Wildlife Federation, children spend just 4 to 7 minutes a day outside on average, while spending approximately 7.5 hours every day in front of electronic media. Many people feel this just isn't healthy and are working to do something about it. We're lucky to have one of these advocates today here on the set. Thank you for joining us, Dr. Goodenough.
Thank you for inviting me.
You're the editor of numerous anthologies on literature relating to children and play, such as this one, Secret Spaces of Childhood, which is one of my favorite. And you also are the driving force behind a major public television documentary called Where Did the Children Play?, which was produced by filmmaker Christopher Cook and has won numerous Michigan Emmys, I think 5. And you are involved in educational outreach, which is national and international. This is a companion volume you put together that goes along with the movie. I wish we could show the movie today, but we can't. But we do have a few seconds of footage that was used in the movie of showing children at play in the 1930s, over 80 years ago. We mentioned the quantity of time of children spent outside is different. Now, what about the quality, Dr. Goodenough? Can you give us some idea of how that's different with children's play today?
Well, the clip we just saw, I think, expresses some surprise elements, the joy and movement of scaling a rock, of sailing across ice, and it's that joy in all the senses that I think we are losing today.
Mm-hmm. And do you think that there are major differences in terms of health, physical health?
Absolutely. Well, we all know about the diabetes epidemic and obesity problems, and there's so many aspects to this. Actually, they're hard to encompass because we tend to specialize childhood into these different areas of formal study. But if you look at it holistically, we're really cheating our children of their spiritual and psychological and intellectual and emotional well-being, I think, through the kind of statistics that you're sharing with us about their screen time versus outdoor time.
And they say that there may be some correlation between the high rates of attention deficit disorder and time spent inside versus outside?
Well, some studies have been done that actually show outdoor play helps relieve attention deficit disorder. It cuts down on impulsivity and kind of explosive behavior. I think we really have to think of what we're doing to our children, keeping them sort of caged all the time. You know, they, like we, are animals who like to be in our natural habitat, and for millennia we've been outside. And so this is a very staggering and disturbing statistic you're sharing.
The sedentary aspect of it, I'm just wondering whether a quarter of children today are obese, they say. I mean, do you think that this is just why it's happening, that they're inside so much?
Absolutely. I mean, it's very clear that that's why it's happening, and that people grow up in the habit of being inside and being stationary. And I think adults have allowed this to happen because their own lives have become like that.
Do you think it could affect resiliency in children? I read something that kind of struck me as interesting on the internet. They were talking about the military readiness of this being a problem if children are never outside, never experiencing tough, rough and tumble. I mean, they mentioned that a quarter of the applicants to the military are turned down due to obesity. To me, it's an amazing thought that we could be a society of unresilient children, which could affect how they handle stress when they become adults.
Well, resilience has a lot of different aspects to it. Emotional resilience has to do with getting through the tough times, and we all know that's what life is about, especially as you live longer, and the capacity to be alone, to entertain yourself, and to also heal yourself has to be learned in life, and it doesn't just come from external stimulation and entertainment. It comes from deep resources that need to be nourished and cultivated. And as far as, you know, fitness for the military, I think it's clear that all species, mammals, have games. You know, they do keep away and rough and tumble and scooting around and hide and seek. All of these are not just survival skills, but part of a kind of growing instinct, or instinct to grow as creatures develop. And it's a natural form of becoming fit that children don't engage in much anymore if they're sedentary.
And it's kind of like a literal wall between children and nature that, you know, in terms of being inside and not connecting. How do you think that's affecting their feelings about nature, how much they value it, how much they want to be stewards of nature?
Well, this has been observed by many people now, that, you know, it's those early formative experiences that reside deeply inside and create who you are. The ethnobiologist E.O. Wilson crawled into a clearing under some bushes and started watching ants.
As a child?
As a kid, yeah, and it created created the field of sociobiology. I mean, he became someone who really opened up a clearing of study for the rest of the world. And so many careers begin in these sort of forays into impulse and play. And your question about these barriers are simply a way of acknowledging that we are narrowing the focus for children. And when you don't involve all the senses and you don't either allow or push your kids outside, you're really cheating them of these primal elemental experiences.
Which makes me think about, you know, the senses. When I was young, I had so much outdoor play. I remember, you know, the feeling of laying in a field, you know, I can just feel it right now, and or wading in a really cold brook. I was just manipulating my environment all the time, and I wonder about the neurological processes that are maybe being shortchanged when children are in a virtual world in front of a screen. Do you think that it could be affecting their
there's
development?
now brain studies research going on to validate exactly what you're talking about. I mean, we know this intuitively, that holding a baby rabbit is not the same as watching Animal Planet. You know, that there's a memory in our muscles that occurs, such as you're describing. So, you know, these early play experiences often are peak experiences, and some research has been done by Claire Cooper Marcus, for example, and Louise Chawla on memories that really stick with you. And they are these kinds of direct experience, not vicarious experiences, with our bodies, with the sensations of these very vital experiences.
Richard Louv has coined it as nature deficit disorder, which sounds kind of like attention deficit disorder, which we throw all kinds of medications at and all kinds of therapies. Now, what are we doing about this nature deficit disorder?
Well, there are many, many groups now working together to address this. Alliance for Childhood, National Wildlife Federation, Children in Nature Network, Hooked on Nature. I mean, the Let's Move Michelle Obama campaign, where in fact she really embodied what I think parents can do. She went out, she took a shovel, she started digging, she created a garden in the backyard of the White House. They got a dog. Everybody knew about the dog. I mean, that kind of playful expression goes a long way to making people aware that there may be something lacking. And so, yeah, I think these groups are very helpful. You can find them online. There are lots of resources. But really, when you ask what should we be doing, I think it begins in the home. And it begins with parents who have to look at what they are modeling for their children and the kinds of fears they're projecting and really ask themselves whether they're not allowing something that's very vital and important.
Because of stranger danger type of thing?
And I think a kind of academic sweepstakes, they're afraid their children may lose when in fact, you know, play builds brains, it socializes children. We do know that, you know, innovation and creativity and being able to work in groups are probably the most important things our children are going to need in the future, and that's exactly where you learn it, is through play outdoors.
And I've read that children are actually safer outside, that most of the problems in terms of sexual abuse or whatever happen indoors with people they know versus outside with strangers. So it's kind of ironic.
Learning how to negotiate the outdoors and handle yourself in all situations is a survival skill. So if we cheat our children of that, or if we put, you know, knee guards on before we even let them see the tricycle, you know, what kind of messages are we telegraphing? You're in danger constantly. You know, curl up in a ball, don't get out of bed.
We're also thinking about things like how we can adapt playgrounds. That's a new field, is that right? And play workers, can you address those concepts?
Well, those are huge topics. Let me talk a bit about play workers, because they create a zone of freedom and they kind of license play without adulterating it, jumping in and trying to organize or direct it. And so I think these kinds of adults are, now that they're professionalized, extremely important. It really is migrating from England. But the play worker enables children to be alone, be alive, to explore, and to do what they want outside. And I think in this country they're necessary because adults are so worried about letting their children be outside.
It's a big difference from when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Speaking of play workers, there's a film that documents a day that you orchestrated with your University of Michigan students when you had a play worker named Philip Waters come over from England, and he worked with your students, and then they all went over to Summers Knoll School, which is a private elementary school here in Ann Arbor, and they spent an afternoon playing outside in a very exciting kind of way. And we're going to show 9 minutes of that movie. And I'd like to say, please excuse some of the shaky footage, because one of the students was holding a camcorder through some of the wild running through the woods. So it's kind of exciting.
Do not make eye contact!
What happens if you make eye contact?
Turn into stone!
You've turned into stone. So my name is Philip. Welcome. You guys are going on a quest today. A quest in a whole new world, somewhere out there. And somewhere you've never been before. Okay? And to help you on your quest, I have some characters with me, and they're going to introduce themselves in a moment with their names. Actually, we're going to start over here.
Hi, my name is Big Elephant, and I am very, very strong.
I am Malosar, and I see everything.
I'm Triona the Triumphant, and I can make anything grow.
Okay. I'm Sari the Storyteller, and I keep everybody's stories. I am Jalif the Thief, so you better watch out. Okay, I'm Patunda, and I can freeze time.
Ooh. That could be handy.
I am Dinak. I am the warrior who can turn you all into stone.
Ah! Did you know they were coming, these guys, that could turn you to stone?
Yeah!
You must have special powers.
I got
You must have special powers.
What's your power?
Hey, well, I'm Philo the Wise. I talk to trees and they talk to me. But I am not coming on your quest today because I have to be guardian of the portal. You have to go through the portal to get into this new world.
You mean the door?
How it would. I don't know, could be a door, could be. We'll have to find out when we get outside. However, you guys, you can't go on the quest unless you've got a whole new identity, a whole new name. So you need to come up with a special name and a special power, and your name has to be part of your original name.
Bob the Blob.
Bob the Blob. You already got it? What is it then?
It's like when I move the air and I can turn invisible. Yeah, and I can control the moon.
Control the moon. Hey, that's a great power. How about you guys?
I got one.
Oh, aren't you Bob the Blob?
No.
Oh, all right,
I
okay.
changed my name.
You're changing it.
Elemental Noah.
Elemental name.
Control the elements.
That's a really handy power to have.
I can make earthquakes.
Earthquakes.
Camouflage.
Hey, camouflage. That's a brilliant power to have. And how about you over there?
I'm anonymous and I'm invincible.
You're anonymous and you're are you like twins? Right, guys, we are now going to split you guys up into 3 quest groups, okay? Because you're going off out there, and then you're going to get to take some of these guys with you. Guys, what's your powers?
Tornado the tornado.
Tornado?
I'm brilliant and I can grow really tall.
Really tall or tornado? What do you reckon? Tornado. Right, guys, you're about to go on your quest, but to help you on your way, you're each going to take one of these. You can't open them up until you're in this new world, until you've gone through the portal. And there's an object in there, and at any point during your quest, you can put your hand in, pull out your object, and it can become a part of your quest, okay? When you come back, you're going to get a chance to tell us all about your quest, what you did, what you met, what happened. Some of you may not come back. Who knows? We don't know. We'll find out at the end of it. But you need to bring these back with you and the object. But also, these are like little collection bags. Anything you discover, you can put in your bag. Right, guys, once you go through here, you're now in a whole new world. I hope we see you again. Okay? Farewell. Good luck. Thank you. Good luck.
What's in it? What's in your bag? I'll open it. Nothing. Wait. I feel it.
What is that?
Oh my goodness. It's a ring.
It looks magical.
What are we gonna do?
Do you think they're okay?
What's in your bag?
Yes.
Is there any attacked them? Yeah.
Oh no.
Oh my goodness, quick, run! Get ready. Quick. Okay. Did you find it?
No other tribe can ever enter our fort.
Oh.
You can't see us.
All right. Break the chain. We must leave.
Now quickly, we must get back to the fort.
Here's your magic bag.
And
if you see them, if you see any of the little people.
oh, that's right. Elemental Noah, can you turn the sound off on everyone so no one can hear? The element of the wind.
sound.
If you make the wind go really loud, then no one will hear us.
Hey guys, look. It's because you had it on. You can hear everything.
Maybe we could hear where the bad people are. What do you think you hear? Listen close.
Here, pick a berry and throw it, and it'll lead us right to our fairy people. The fire will blaze the way. There.
Over
Let's
there,
go.
look,
Let's
through the
go.
trees.
I see the path.
Don't forget your magic cloak.
It's breathing fire at you. I have water power. You think?
We have the water element.
Everyone, open your bag.
Don't you feel so changed?
Everyone, use your power.
What should we do with it though?
Put it in the ring.
Put it in with the others. Are there any other things that we could put
Use
in our
it.
house that
Use
will
yours.
do
Use
anything
yours.
ever?
Use yours,
What
Aaron.
else is left?
Do
you hear them?
They're coming.
No direction of right. Ooga, Ida, ooga, Ida.
Ooga, Ida, ooga, Ida.
All of your power into it. Ready?
Jump.
Our adventures are over.
There's the portal.
Before the portal closes quickly.
The portal closes.
30 seconds!
Oh my goodness, close it out. Get it to lock it.
Hold on to the lemon. They've still got a few seconds.
Close it.
Have you lost anybody? Oh no, he's caught in the ball. Should we go into safety? I need to know all about your quest.
Alright, let's go.
Head that way. Questers, tribes, are you ready? We're going to start with this group. You guys are going to tell all us about your quest, your journey, where you went, what you discovered.
So we went back. We almost didn't make it. We had like 39 seconds. And we opened the portal with this. Yes, and we fried coffee beans. And I ate the coffee bean and I got energy. And we used this feather to fly back to the portal. And this she does. And we used her to burn that group. No, not burn. We used water to drown that group. And you don't think fire to burn this group. But we had this group. I forgot which group.
But we had the water element on our side, so we.
Who was the water? You.
Me, I'm Elemental Noah.
But we had the earth element.
Hey, I had all.
Don't forget air. And this cube was ice and water.
Wow. So tribes were attacking other tribes then?
Yes.
One individual. You're going to. Brilliant.
I have one question. Well, what was this quest for?
You tell me. Well, I tell you what, let's hear this quest and maybe we'll ask that question again.
We were on a quest to save some strange little people. We have this tool, which helped us hear them coming because we cannot see them.
Fantastic, fantastic quest. I'm going to go back to your question. What do all of you think? What do you think the quest is about?
To die. To find our power that has something to do with nature and stuff.
Yeah.
To find our intellectual freedom. And I know, to find what was in this bag.
To find what was in the bag?
A test.
A test could be a test.
To survive the world.
Mm-hmm.
A test to learn to use our powers.
Was a study that you college students did.
Actually, I mean, I think it's all those things, really. That's what I think. I think the main thing is that you guys came back with stories. Can you do this next year? Well, I think you might do it next week. Who knows?
Okay, Dr. Goodenough, in the movie that we just saw that we call The Quest, it's adult facilitated play. What do you think are some of the pros and cons of that?
Well, it probably wouldn't have happened in a school setting if there hadn't been a professional legitimizing it. I mean, Summer Snow was unique in allowing this opportunity, and I applaud their decision. Philip Waters didn't really go on the quest. You notice he stayed at the gate, and I think that's cool because, you know, the college students and the kids were on a quest to explore not just that terrain but themselves. And I think, you know, it's a metaphor for life. Why are we here? To discover ourselves in the outside world. And we can see how those children named themselves and discovered different things, and in their interaction afterwards are really perhaps learning things about themselves that you don't do in a highly scripted classroom setting. So there are many, many pros. Sometimes a very short experience like that is like a family vacation where the out of doors is the centerpiece, and you never forget that experience. It goes so deep.
Yeah, I bet those kids won't forget. I also wonder whether it wasn't good to have the kids have those college kids around to help them spark ideas, because sometimes some children, you get them outside and they just can't think of anything to do. They just have a hard time getting the creative ball rolling. And for instance, they might play act Star Wars or something they're familiar with, but when these college students were so excited about, you know, like those names that they had, and then the kids were able to sort of role model once they saw what the college kids came up, crazy names they came up with, and I felt like there was a lot of energy going back and forth, and that maybe from then on the children could go out with just their peers and have a little bit more idea of how they could pursue that kind of creative play?
That's really an interesting question, Barbara. I mean, would they need the college students? I'm not sure they would, but the whole event was more truncated and frenetic than we wanted it to be. It wasn't as leisurely, and so in some ways the college students were catalysts, and it worked well because it had to be quite short given the school day. But my sense is that children come back to play quite naturally, and there's no dearth of creative juices if they're allowed to discover them.
Well, that's good to know.
Yeah.
Where can we're running out of time, but where can we get more information on Where Do the Children Play, the movie?
There's actually a website. If you Google Where Do the Children Play documentary, there's a 30-second teaser and some information about play and outreach, and I would suggest that's also where you can purchase the film and the companion volumes.
Okay, great. You can also find a link to that video and to the full version of the quest, which we just showed, at ewashna.org/greenroom. Thanks for joining us here in the Green Room.